Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ad Age Remotely. I'm Janine Poggi, Assistant Managing Editor here at Ad Age. Thanks so much for joining us. Today, I am joined live by Nick Emery, who last month was named founding partner of You and Mr. Jones's new media division. He's here today to discuss the need for brands to take back control over their media strategy amid the massive changes going on in the ad world. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Janine. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone.
And congrats on the new gig. Exciting new role for you announced, last month. Can you talk to us a little bit about the new media division at You and Mr. Jones and what you feel like is the need for this in the industry right now?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, we want to create a kind of progressive, modern media organization that reflects the world that we live in, because we don't think there are many that really do that right now. But we want to build it around clients. We want it to be in-house, so clients have a bit of control over their destiny, of their data, of their strategies. We want to root it in technology because we are the brand tech group. We want to do it faster, we want to do it better and cheaper, and the first people to coin that. And we want to do it transparently. And there are a number of things I think that are central to that. One is the sort of reunification of content and media. We think that assets and audiences need to work symbiotically, to work together to get the most out of those assets, to get the most out of your audiences, and to have a constant loop of data that's fed back from your media activity to your first party data to allow you to enable better and more effective strategies, and to get closer to your people, to the people who buy your brands and your products, and to your end users. So, and ultimately, that's really what it's about. It's about getting close to consumers. It's about getting your brand getting closer to people and putting you more in control of what you do. I think the creative and media unification is key. I think that many clients now don't really have a media AOR as such. Their activation and their services are fractured across many different organizations. So bringing better control over that in-house, so you know what you're doing across all your different channels, is key. And we also want to address probably the most fundamental piece of technology that's been in our business recently, which is kind of malware, really. I think there's a lack of trust in our business, and by putting that back in-house, back in the control of our clients, doing it transparently, doing it with technology at the fore, we think is what's needed. And there's a wave of progressive clients who are looking for this kind of service.
Yeah. For those of you watching at home, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them on our social channels. We will try to get to them during this conversation. And if you like what we're doing on Ad Age Remotely, please post and share this page and send us some love. So, Nick, why is this the right time for this? Why do you think there's brand need to do this at this moment in time?
I think the impetus and the focus for it is obviously what we know about cookies and the need for people to take better control of their first-party data. I think that's the drive for this, in that people need to know where their dollars are going, and they need to have better control over that, both in terms of how they detect fraud, in terms of how they monitor their tech stack, but also how they do their strategies. And I think to date, a lot of it's focused around individual platform, kind of vertical platform reselling rather than cross-platform. A lot of it has been very executionally focused rather than strategically focused, and taking it as a strategy right the way through from warehouse to wallet. And also, I think the rise of e-commerce is critical to this. Not many agencies have built themselves around commerce, and we think that commerce, content and community is going to be key to this. Everyone wants things to be addressable, they want things to be personal, and they want things to be shoppable. And we have to build an agency and a service around that for clients. And develop something that is new and different and dynamic that allows them to take better control of what they do.
What has been the hurdles, previously, historically, for brands to do this, in-house? I think one of the, notions out there is that there's a loss of sort of scale and the ability to sort of benefit from scale if you are out there alone doing this yourself. What would you say to that? And what are some of the other hurdles that, you're looking at to help brands, get across?
I'm not sure about the debate about scale. I mean, we built the agencies before based around trading scale, and I'm not sure that's a relevant thing anymore. I'm not sure what the benefit of scale is, really. I think it's much more about agility. It's about platform knowledge. It's about being responsive and being agnostic on the technology that you use. I think one of the reasons why people have been reticent is they've talked about do you get fresh talent? Is it flexible? Is it motivating for people to work in that environment? And can you rotate people out? And I think there's a spin to that, which is if you have the right technological spine that brings together your assets and your audiences, gives you control over channels that you have control in your house, in your business, then what it allows you to do is to automate a large part of your business. You can then have, in terms of the service layer, you can rotate that. So in agencies, a typical AOR, you might have the same team for a year or sometimes the same team for 3 years. We think you'd have a different team every quarter. You might have the same architect, the same team leader, but the actual constituency of that team would assemble and disassemble probably every quarter based around the client's needs. And those clients' needs organically grow as the business grows. So having a flexible service that is not an agency, but is an in-house group that is designed around you is key. And what's critical about our model is that we're not suggesting that clients go and hire people themselves. There are people who go into your building. So we are responsible for the makeup and the constituency and keeping that team together. And arguably the most exciting thing about our business is solving client problems and how you structurally do that and how you make it the team. And our business has always been a team sport, and therefore it's critical how we do that, how we continually refresh that for our clients. So I think that's how we overcome that, and also I think how we energize it and make it more interesting for people to do that, because they will have themselves, different journeys, different tasks each quarter. You might have a setup as you go in, and you look at the inefficiencies in the MarTech or the AdTech stack. You'll have a strategic team that will go in and look at the full funnel strategy, and you have an on-demand activation group who will do that, and each person has their own personal fulfillment as well as corporate responsibility within that.
Well, I certainly think one of the biggest challenges right now that most brands are probably dealing with is navigating the demise of the third-party cookie. How are you speaking with and thinking about what brands need to do moving forward to help navigate this?
Well, I think first of all, they need the right talent. I mean, there's an amazing array of acronyms and confusion that reigns in this world, and everyone is now scrambling around to have their identifier, whether it's Flock, whether it's other walled gardens, whether it's publishers, whether it's the trade desk. Everyone is trying to do that. I think what we will concentrate on is how we get the best out of our clients' data, what the best matching for that is, what the best mix of identifiers and context, increasingly importantly, is right for our clients. So it's about putting the whole story together. That's important, not about selling what we happen to own. And I think neutrality is key in this. Clients have to trust that we haven't got our own axe to grind. We haven't got our own company that we're trying to sell, our own tech stack that we're trying to engineer into the solution. And that's another one of the great appealing things about coming to work for David and for you and Mr. Jones, is that we can work with anybody. Whoever happens to be right, whoever's fit for purpose, we can work with. I mean, there are already fantastic assets in the group, from 55 to Gravity Road to Oliver, that we can work with, and some fantastic investments as well. So VidMob and JVox, Elsie, Niantic, Pinterest, a load of things that we can bring together, so we can work agnostically across the right solution for clients to bring them something that's really compelling and different and interesting.
How are you looking to build your team there?
A combination, like you would expect, of building and buying and sometimes borrowing. But I don't think we have to necessarily conventionally go down the route of always owning and always buying. I think we have to work with the right people that are right for our clients. So if our diagnosis of a client challenge is that we have to work with a range of different partners that are right for them, we should work with whoever are the right partners, not who we happen to own or what we're trying to sell. Now, I think that involves a kind of new model of working, a new model of collaboration. And I also think as a media organization, media in the past has been sometimes a rather flinty and harsh environment. We need to make sure it's both empathetic, and accurate and compassionate, and works with people in new and different ways, and isn't combative and is inclusive. So we want to make sure that that's reflected in how we operate.
I'm here with Nick Emery, who is a founding partner of you and Mr. Jones Media. Thanks so much for those of you who are watching at home. We have Abigail from North Carolina, Tasha from Illinois, Daniel from Ghana, Son from Cambodia, and Hugo from Canada. And we also have a question from Andrew on LinkedIn. How are you thinking about providing guidance for cross-team collaboration? For example, helping brands better connect their own media, content, commerce, and CSR teams?
What we're thinking of, what way we're approaching it, we like the idea of creating residencies for clients. So what we do is, if you think of the parallel to the wider cultural world, that they have artists in residence, scientists in residence, poets in residence, DJs in residence, academics, etc. That we'll build a team based around our diagnosis of the client, and therefore bring in that right skill set. And that skill set would be both very broad, probably at the outset, in terms of looking at the audit, and then drill down into the specific needs. But I think it would be always a combination of engineering, of technology, of platform expertise, of storytelling, of CRM. The critical point of bringing content, CRM, and media and execution and assets together is the opportunity cost is lost by not having all that in one team. So any team will probably have all those constituent elements, but you will dial up and dial down the emphasis based on the client diagnosis.
And we have another question from Ankit on LinkedIn. What are some of the biggest risks of just relying on first-party data?
Well, I don't think we just rely on first-party data. That's why I think context is equally important. I mean, there are parallels between how the walled gardens are trying to use privacy to build their own citadels with the old world of News Corp, in that the use of audiences and context and mapping all the different constituent elements that a client has to create the whole story is critically important. First-party data is obviously critical, and now we need to help clients build that, but it's not the only thing that goes into it.
And you mentioned the need for perhaps media agencies to act a little kinder, operate it a little kinder. We've learned a lot, obviously, from working remotely during the pandemic. As you look to the future of how the agency world operates, which is, of course, long been based on interpersonal communications, face-to-face, a lot of travel, long nights and, weekends. So how are you thinking about how the agency world operates as we slowly move into what hopefully will be a post-pandemic world?
I think that the rewards of the work and the field of working in media is so exciting that will be a compensation. But also I think there will be an awful lot of, as we know, hybrid working, people in offices, people still traveling, people wanting to stay at home, and we have to reflect that. If you look at the world we live in now, it's a world where, clearly looking at the results recently, that Alphabet, Pinterest, Snap have taken over from traditional media. E-gaming's taken over from gaming, cloud technology's taken over from technology, creators have taken over from traditional agencies, streaming's taken over from cable. It's a very different world, and therefore we need to work in a very different world and have that flexibility, that agility to let people work in their own way, that come up with the right, but as long as they get the reward from work by coming up with great solutions and coming up with something that's interesting and dynamic and inventive for clients. Because I think one thing that media has lost is become a little bit transactional, a little bit executional, and we should bring back some of the excitement that media has. And I think that our definition of media being a much broader thing is important to that. I mean, I've started thinking about the analogy really between the media industry and Marvel Studios and the gaming business, in that the gaming business and Marvel films were not that good really in the 1990s. They had great ambition and great stories, but they weren't very good. And they became a lot better, but their ambition was the same way media's ambition was to grow, to come up with great solutions for clients. But as the technology grew, Marvel films got better, but also as they looked at storylines and looked at independent producers and independent storytellers and a different way of telling stories, they got better. And I think that's how media can really blossom. Technology and the ability to create new things has caught up with our ambition. And I think there's a lot of pent-up desire both for clients for a new way, which is why we're doing what we're doing, but also we need to unleash the creativity of the media community to work in new and different ways. And that can involve them working wherever and however they want.
Do you think in all the conversation around data, audience targeting and the like, that we've moved away a bit, or maybe too far, from context and content in those conversations?
A little bit. I think some people may have. I think sometimes we obsess about it a little bit, but it's very important. I mean, all the constituent parts are important. You're looking after large sums of clients' money. So how you monitor fraud, brand safety, how you approach that, how you have that right fiduciary responsibility, but how you automate. But at the same time, how you make it exciting. It is a job. Our job is to come up with new and interesting solutions. I mean, arguably, we only have 2 jobs: to help our clients sell and to grow and have a positive contribution to society. That's what we should do. And I think there's a real opportunity for us to do that with a new and different approach.
I'd like to shift gears a little bit and discuss diversity and inclusion efforts in the ad world. How are you thinking about things like inclusivity when investing media dollars, especially as we enter upfront negotiations? What do you expect to see as it relates to shifting dollars into diversity-owned media, media companies that reach more diverse audiences?
Well, I hope we'll see a real shift. I mean, we better, hadn't we? I think it's interesting. I think there is some good work. I mean, there's some good work on private marketplaces. There's some good work on percentage of budget that should be donated to certain areas or allocated to certain areas. And certainly we need to do better at a kind of an inclusivity metric, that includes sustainability, toxicity, inclusivity, diversity, and brand safety. We need to do all these things, and it needs to be a systemic cause, not just a source of competitive advantage for an agency, but it has to be something that goes across the breadth of the whole community. But at the same time, I think it's very clear that the status quo, is unacceptable. And how many evaluations, how many frameworks do you really need to know that more money should be put behind Black-owned businesses and Black voices? It's not that difficult, surely. I don't think it's acceptable to say we'll have a framework by the end of 2021 or beginning of 2022 for how we allocate our dollars. Certain things you just have to do because they're right, and you have to do them now. So yes, I think we have to have a more disciplined approach. It has to be industry wide. There have to be better metrics, but at the same time, time's run out. We have to just do something. And what we do as a business, we are not brain surgeons. We're not at the front line of saving lives, but this, in terms of how we allocate and help allocate money, is arguably our most important thing. So we have to, it has to be at the top of the agenda. It has to be a critical thing that we do. And there's no time to wait, really.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of things that maybe have held things up in the past, like metrics and measurement. How those are not there yet, but how do you help brands navigate that, now, instead of waiting until there are, inclusivity metrics, new ways of measurement that go beyond just conversations around scale?
Well, I think now you need to intuitively look at your plan and look at how it's invested and how it's spent, and are you doing the right thing? I think you have to look as a personal and a corporate responsibility here. Frameworks are important, but they can't be used to delay, obfuscate, or hide behind.
Yeah. So we are getting into, this week is the new fronts. We're getting into the upfronts. What do you think the role of these events, these presentations, actually still play in the media landscape?
Well, I think it's pretty clear what the upfronts, the role they play. That's just to sort of bleed as much money from the old world to pay for the new world, isn't it? That's kind of. I'm not really sure what the role of the upfronts is anymore. Is there anything on linear TV that's worth paying vastly inflated sums for? I'm not really sure. And I think the role of sports and clips has kind of eclipsed some of that quantity. So I think the upfronts are a kind of dying event. I'm not quite sure really why they still exist, although they do exist, in the same way people still buy cable and buy print. They exist because you're trying to make money out of that world while you re-engineer the new world. But I think the merger of the two is kind of inevitable. I think there's a real role that the new fronts can and will play around transparency, around diversity, around sustainability, in terms of driving that agenda. I really hope that they do that and they take that on, and it doesn't just become a money-making sponsored event for people to come and showcase their latest thing. It has to be something that's a serious industry body that's there to drive change. And in terms of how it works, I think increasingly people will coalesce around Disney, around NBCU, around Warner, around Fox, in terms of working with them in a different way for the upfronts. I think we should look at different partnerships. As I've said before, streaming's taken over cable, creators have taken over the agencies, and if ever there was a time for a post-pandemic reinvention of an event, it's the upfronts.
Well, connected TV is definitely one of the big keywords this week in the new fronts. What's your view on the space?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. I think some of this stuff in terms of research is kind of exciting as well, in terms of how we look across different channels rather than in channel. But I think if you look at what's interesting and what's going to come up, then connected TV has to be up there, in terms of what we look at. I think you have to look at commerce and how we, it'd be interesting, not only Amazon, but it'd be interesting to see how Pinterest bounces back, what happens with Facebook Marketplace. Commerce has to be central to everything we do. I'm sure everyone's talking about audio. How will audio really be monetized? Is tipping going to work? What's going to happen with Twitter and Facebook when they come back? At Clubhouse. And then also, I think the other one you put into, as well as connected TV and commerce and audio, would be gaming. I mean, we all talk about gaming. We all kind of know that it's huge. We all know that esports has taken over, real life gaming. But in terms of how it drives both hardware development and experiences, I still think it's an underrepresented and underexploited opportunity for clients.
So should brands have a gaming strategy and being prepared for that?
Yeah. I mean, for sure they should. I mean, it has to, in the same way, the reason why we're building around content, commerce, and community is that you have to have content and media linked together. Your assets and your audience have to come together. It has to be about communities. Those communities exist, not only on Discord and Twitch, but in gaming itself. So you have to make sure that does that. And it's about the creation. The creation that audio will allow you to do, and the creation of other environments. So yeah, absolutely.
Of course, you mentioned e-commerce, which had a big year amid the pandemic. What are the opportunities in commerce that you're kind of keeping an eye on? Where do you see it converging at this point?
Well, I think what's interesting is you have the kind of activation agencies and the agencies that are trying to be more strategic, and those that are concentrating on Amazon and how Amazon might get into the reseller business in the same way that Google got into the same way you have Google agencies, you'll have Amazon agencies, and you are seeing that. Our approach is, yes, that's really important, and you have to be experts in that field, but let's look at what Facebook Marketplace are doing, what Pinterest are doing. We want to see it much more warehouse to wallet, not just in one ecosystem, but how you track the whole environment. If you talk to clients, certainly the large kind of multinational clients, they will probably say they have two big issues. One is data. Either they've got too much of it, or it's in the wrong place, or they don't know how to organize it, and they're not quite sure what to do with it. And can you please help activate it in a new and different and more profitable way? But also, how do you operate in the total retail environment, everything? And that involves similar strategic skills that general approaches do, but also much deeper commerce skills in that environment. And then the final sort of area is there's an awful lot that we can and should be learning from China. So I think that what happens there in terms of social commerce is something, there's some real lessons for us to adopt.
How about NFTs and all of the buzz around those? Is that something that you think has legs, or, this time next year we'll be forgetting all about it?
No, I think it definitely has legs. I mean, I think it's about scarcity, isn't it? And people have always, our business, a large part of our business has been about creating scarcity. That's kind of a large part of what we do. And it also taps into a basic kind of human need, which is they collect things. And people love to collect things, and they love to sort of show that collection has some merit, and that merit has some eternal value. So I think definitely it has. And I think there's a whole business in monitoring, exploiting, keeping that together. So almost certainly there is.
You mentioned audio as well. How are you looking at things like Clubhouse moving forward?
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see how Clubhouse monetizes itself. It was interesting to look at the drop-off. I think it was recently in terms of their numbers. So that's kind of an interesting thing to monitor. That will happen. I think Spotify will come back. I think Facebook will get into it. I think Twitter's going to get into it. I think audio is a whole area. I think what's exciting about it is not just who wins or who loses, but how it enables a whole different creator community to come into that space. So we're really excited about that, on one hand, and then connected TV on the other, and commerce stretching the whole thing.
So, I mean, if really short term, like maybe over the next 6 months, what do you think that brands really need to prioritize right now?
Working with a neutral, talented party who's got their best interests at heart to develop their data strategy, so they can take it through to the most effective way to grow their customers, the most effective relationship with their customers. Because ultimately, there's a lot of snake oil around, and there's a lot of people trying to sell their own wares. And it really comes down, and even with the best technology in the world, you still need the best talent in the world to interpret that, to use it in the best possible way. So I would be collecting, pretty much what I am doing, which is collecting the best talent, the best technology, the best resources, to allow my brand to go to market in new and interesting ways, that both are purposeful and profitable and are using the latest and interesting technology. I think being tied to a particular company and a particular company's technology is not in their interest. I think working in an agile way, a platform-centric way, a responsive way, and a way that sees media as a real driver of growth, which I think a lot of people do now. There is a real split, I think, in the business between those who are still trying to eke out the last possible value from the TV trading dollars, to those that are embracing the future and embracing a more D2C mentality, even if they're a CPG.
Nick, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Happy to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
As always, thank you to our Ad Age crew, Alfred Mascaroni, Anna Sakula, Max Sternlicht, Elise Liffring, and Arabella Brack for making this live stream happen. Thanks everyone for tuning in.